You know how people will always say that currently we're living in like the 1940s, or we're living in the 1960s, or we're living in the 1800s, or whatever in our current times in our political landscape, right? And so I would always ask, like, okay, but you know how music back then really played a big role in a lot of political and social movements back then? Like, a lot of really good music was put out, a lot of really good protest music was put out, a lot of really, like, politically charged music was put out at those times. And I was like, where's the music today? A person that is like super visible, that is like using their very large platform to like be out there saying something about what is going on, is Hayley Williams, truly, right? Like, I know there's other people obviously saying something, and I know that there's other artists saying something, and of course hip hop is always saying something because it's hip hop, and that's what hip hop was built on. But for like the mainstream, Hayley Williams is really saying something. She's using the punk in pop punk the right way. The right way. All those hardcore shows that she went to growing up, all of that R&B and hip hop that she listened to while she was in Mississippi before she went to Tennessee, all the black music that she grew up on, going to, you know, the black churches when she was younger. All of those things truly made an impact on her, and you can totally tell in the music that she makes and the music that Paramore makes. And this current album cycle has probably been one of my favorite album cycles of anything that Hayley Williams herself or Paramore have ever put out. Like, I have listened to the entire Ego Death at a bachelorette party. I have listened to it. I've listened to the whole record, you know, and everything. But every single time I listen to that record, the song that stands out to me heavily, that I just can't get out of my head, is True Believer. And I know it's because I'm a black Paramore fan. And like, that is the basis of what I've built my fandom on when it comes to being a fan of Paramore or Hayley Williams. I built it on being a black Paramore fan. And every time I post about them, I always do it with the preference of being a black Paramore fan. And anytime Hayley brings it up, or anytime Paramore in general brings it up about, you know, the black fans, or, you know, them being a very diverse band and them having a very diverse, you know, fandom, that's where I gravitate to the most. And I don't know if it's because growing up listening to pop punk and emo music back in the 2000s was like a very lonely experience if you were a black fan, and very hard to like be in that genre of music, that subculture, that scene, knowing that you were in the minority because you were black, because you were brown, because you were indigenous, because you were whatever, because you were a woman. You were in the minority in a lot of ways because it was very much a white, and specifically white male dominated space. And as much as I love that music, and I always will, and I go back to it like all the time, it's my comfort music. It's something that was music I grew up with, okay? Listen to it in middle school, listen to it in high school. It's like very important to me. It was a very white dominated space. And I had posted a clip of Hayley Williams on the New York Times podcast that she did last week. And incredible interview. If you have not, you know, watched it, go watch it. But in the comments of when I posted it, in the comments, I got a lot of comments about, yeah, I've been a Hayley Williams fan, I've been a Paramore fan since 2005, since 2007, since 2008. And it was just hard back then because, you know, being black and being into pop punk or emo music, you were kind of left out, you were kind of not seen, you were just kind of pushed to the side, and it wasn't a very friendly, you know, environment. And that is so real. And so to watch Paramore specifically, like there are other bands in the pop punk and emo sphere that are down, they understand, they get it, they're down, and they're not creeps, and they're not racist, and they're not, white men, patriarchal, misogynistic weirdos. Yeah, there are, other bands that are doing it, but they're just not doing it like Paramore. They're just not doing it like Hayley Williams. And I could talk about this for literally forever. I actually have a YouTube channel, Ice Turtle Girl, look it up, where I talk about Paramore and Hayley Williams and my love for this band. And I kind of go a little bit in depth about this. But yeah, I could talk about this forever because Paramore and Hayley Williams really just, the standard that they put out there in terms of their care for their fans, and specifically their fans of color and their black fans, it means more than I don't think anybody will ever understand. Like, and I get it that Paramore has become very, 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 very mainstream, and there are people who like Paramore and Hayley Williams who have never listened to pop punk music in their life, and if they have, they only listen to singles that have been on the radio. Like, they know, Misery Business from Paramore, right? And they love Paramore in that way, and they know Ain't It Fun, right? And then they might know a Fall Out Boy song, they might know a Panic at the Disco song, like, they know these, like, singles, but they're not really in the scene like that, like, who love Paramore, who value Paramore, who value Hayley Williams, right? And I think that's super awesome. But for somebody who was really in that scene, who is really into that subgenre, and who really understands when people say it was rough to be a person of color, to be black, to be indigenous, to be a woman in that scene, it was really, really rough. It was really, really rough. I believe them because I was there. I was there, and it was not easy. It was not easy. In person, online, going to shows, any of those things. It was not easy. It was just not easy. And so for Paramore, and specifically Hayley Williams, to continue to remind us black and brown and, fans of color, and just that they care so deeply, it's incredible. With last night's performance on the Jimmy Fallon show of True Believer, immaculate, truly immaculate. Such a powerful statement in such a polarizing time, And on that podcast from the New York Times, Hayley also opened up about how on Warped Tour, it felt like nobody was willing to talk about social issues. They were not really willing to talk about like politics and stuff like that on a deep level. And that they were kind of like cosplaying like the punk mentality, but more with the pop sensibility, right? And that's kind of what pop punk has always been anyways. But it's like they didn't want to step into that lane where they were going to really open up about, things going on in the world. And she opened up about that. And I've always kind of felt that with the whole pop punk mentality and the pop punk, world, that they weren't really talking about much, but the music was catchy. So it was like, hey, the music's catchy, it's good vibes, you're gonna listen to it. But they weren't really opening up and talking about these real issues going on in the world, right? They weren't really doing the punk and pop punk, right? And so now that Hayley is now independent, she's not on a record label anymore, she's even more able to talk about these issues that plague our world even more. And it's so incredibly beautiful to watch and see. And I am forever thankful to Hayley Williams. Like, I truly, truly am. Like, she is doing everything in her power to make sure that her black fans, her fans of color, that we're seen. And that is just, it's amazing, and it's incredible.